That feeling of being in control is a human need. Many people get a thrill from watching things being smashed into millions of pieces, and the same thing applies to buildings as well. Watching a huge old building get reduced to a bunch of rubble can be exciting, but at times, things can end up terrible. Here are 5 demolitions that went horribly wrong. Number 5. The Zip Feed Tower. In its prime days, the Zip Feed Mill Tower stood as the tallest building in South Dakota, the United States. But ever since, it's been empty and outlived its usefulness. Except as a home to pigeons and other critters. This massive structure was viewed as a symbol of the growing metro's agricultural past. This 202-foot ginormous building was then bought and planned to be converted into a spectacle. The city officials, too, were more than happy to get rid of this ugly building. People from the nearby neighborhood gathered near the area, and everybody was excited about seeing this building kind of crumble to the ground in a big cloud of smoke and fall apart and all that. 3 months of planning was done to detonate the structure, and explosives were laid. When the time came for the explosion, a huge bang was heard from a distance. But the building stayed as if it were a wedge. Everybody waited for a second explosion to knock it down. But unfortunately, what happened was that the feed mill was a lot heavier than what had been calculated, and that much momentum on that 1-foot-thick concrete wall caused that concrete wall hinge to simply disintegrate. It just couldn't take the load. Onlookers were pretty bummed out about the failed demolition. The whole area was pretty much roped off. The demolition company then had to bring in a ball and chain. They spent about 3 weeks trying to knock the mill tower down. It took a lot of work to get it down. Number 4. Prostějov Textile Factory. A textile factory in Prostějov, Czech Republic, was set to be reduced to a bunch of rubble. The reason was that its owners had filed for bankruptcy and could no longer afford to run the factory. The demolition of the factory required 1,193 kilograms of dynamite, along with 4,500 kilometers of wires and detonators. People from the nearby areas had flocked to watch the detonation happen. But one particular couple was almost decapitated by the falling debris. As a controlled explosion was carried out on the building, a rock came flying from the wreckage, just narrowly passing over the heads of a man and a woman. That man had a close brush with death. He barely had time to react to a rock coming at him at super speed. The video of this incident was taken by another curious onlooker, and it went viral. The astonishing video of this incident has now been viewed more than 700,000 times since being uploaded on YouTube. Several thousand commented on this fatalistic accident. One commenter wrote, "I like how they seemingly act like the 500-mile-per-hour piece of concrete the size of a Thanksgiving Day turkey that could have killed any one of them isn't that big of a deal." This clearly highlights the importance of demolition companies, ensuring that both the onlookers and the workers are safe when this high-risk operation is carried out. Royal Canberra implosion. The Royal Canberra Hospital closed down in the late November 1991. This caused so much controversy. These hospital buildings were located on the ACTON Peninsula on Lake Burley Griffin. The citizens of Canberra were saddened when they realized that the hospital was about to be closed down. It was demolished to make way for the National Museum of Australia. The government and the local authorities approved a submission recommending the implosion method of demolition. The demolition of the Canberra Hospital by way of implosion was billed as a spectator event. Over 100,000 people gathered for this event. This constituted one of the largest crowds in the history of Canberra. The implosion here at the hospital, however, was a massive disaster. Large pieces of debris reached spectators situated almost 500 meters away on the opposite side of the lake, designated as a safe viewing location. Large fragments of masonry and metal were found 650 meters away from the demolition site, and unfortunately, a 12-year-old girl was killed instantly. 9 other people were also injured. The surprising part is that the main building didn't fully disintegrate even after such a huge explosion. It was manually demolished afterwards. Vordingborg Silo. A Danish cultural center has been damaged after an obsolete 173-foot-high silo fell the wrong way while being demolished. This demolition had been planned for months. What the demolition workers didn't expect was for the silo to fall the wrong way. Instead of landing on a clear site intended for its remnants, the silo landed on a neighboring library and cultural center. Hundreds of spectators gathered at the nearby harbor to watch the old silo go down. But what they got to witness was the unplanned partial destruction of a nearby building that doubles as a library and cultural center. A photo of the aftermath shows one corner of the waterfront building reduced to a mess of splintered lumber and stone, with the fallen silo just feet away. Thankfully, no one was injured. Number 1. Building collapse in Philadelphia. The number 1 on our list is possibly the worst case of a demolition gone wrong. 2138 Market Street was an empty 4-story building in Philadelphia. It had been under demolition by Griffin Campbell Construction Company. The 2138 Market was adjacent to the single-story 2140 Market Street building. This had a Salvation Army thrift store operating on the ground and basement levels. The store was open. It was full of shoppers and staff. However, one day, as the demolition work was going on, the building collapsed onto the Salvation Army store. 6 people died, and 14 were injured. A 61-year-old woman was trapped for almost 13 hours and then hospitalized in critical condition. The injuries faced by the 13 others were minor. An angel came to the site of the accident in disguise. After the collapse, an 18-year-old high school student who had been walking by the building when it collapsed rushed to the scene and spent nearly half an hour just trying to free people from the rubble before the emergency crews could arrive. The deaths associated with this didn't stop there. Ronald Wagenhofer, the Department of Licenses and Inspections inspector responsible for inspecting the demolition site, was found dead in his truck with a gunshot to the chest. His death was ruled as a suicide. Sean Benchop, the crane operator working on the demolition job at the time, was charged with 6 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 13 counts of recklessly endangering another person, and 1 count of risking a catastrophe. A blood test was performed after the collapse when he admitted to taking codeine and revealed marijuana in his system. He received a sentence of 7.5 years to 15 years of imprisonment for involuntary manslaughter charges. The construction worker was sentenced to 15 years to 30 years in prison. Oh, wow. All of these incidents, one by one, indicate how important it is to carry out demolition work safely. Naturally, every building structure must be one of limited validity. Once the structure has served its validity, it's no longer considered safe to occupy or even be around. In the above conditions, the building must be demolished, and it can be reconstructed if needed to. However, since demolition work is one of the most hazardous operations, there should be expert involvement in analyzing the conditions. It should be noted whether it's suitable for demolishing that specific building, and the strength of that structure should be calculated. Demolition work should be avoided during the night and in adverse weather conditions. The health and safety of the workers should be ensured across all demolition sites worldwide. The companies must ensure that the workers wear 5-part personnel protective equipment, or PPE. Any staff working on a demolition site has to have the appropriate qualifications and training and experience. It's vital that every employee understands what equipment should be worn and present throughout the entire demolition. Regular safety training is also needed to help reduce the risk of accidents. It's important to remember that some qualifications and licenses expire after a certain amount of time. Therefore, it's necessary to check regularly to ensure that everyone's training is on point. Phew, that was a lot. What do you guys think of these final demolition accidents? How do you think that the safety of the onlookers and workers can be ensured? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back soon with a new video, but until then, later.